guys, welcome back to the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel for the video today. And guys, today I want to give sort of an intro, maybe intermediate level little video here on fishing football head jigs. Now, I think a lot of times when I do these videos, I sort of like assume that people know what I'm talking about as far as techniques, but a football head jig is a specialized type of a jig for a certain technique. And I sort of want to give you guys some football head jig tips 101. So if you're just getting started on it, if you haven't caught many bass on a football head jig, this is definitely going to help you out here. And also guys, we'll be talking about, this is my Blaukat Throwback football head jig, guys. You can see it's got the nice football head jig design. It's got a straight eye tie there that allows it to come over rocks good. Most importantly, guys, it has a hand-tied living rubber skirt. It's the only jig on the market that has a hand-tied living rubber skirt. I'll put my Blaukat Throwback football head jig in my tackle warehouse link in this description of the video here. If you guys would like to order some of my jigs, you can use that link there. It's a good way to help the channel and get you some jigs. And also guys, one quick reminder, we have got just a few more days left. You've heard me talking about it on the big August sale on the Cast King ALTI bait cast reel. This month, guys, by the end of the month, you can get it at 10% off and another 10% off if you use my promo code Randy10. So I'll have the Cast King link in the description of this video, guys. This sucker is almost impossible to backlash because of this Halo Vortex braking system it has on it. Super light, super strong, all titanium spool, built for stout, guys. You guys will love this reel, so you can get it on that discount on my link in the description here. Appreciate that. Okay, football head jigging, guys. A little bit different here. Now, if you're not familiar with it, let me just start from the scratch a little bit. The basic difference on a football head jig over just your typical, like here's my throwback pitching and flipping jig, is it's basically the head design here. You can see the head design is completely different. My flipping and pitching jig has more of a flat head on it with a turned eye tie there for coming over limbs. But the football head jig is just like it said, it's designed like a football. This specifically is designed to crawl over and around rocks and not get hung up. But other than that, it's got the same components. It's got the nice, 4-aught hook in it, good weed guard. It's got a nice keeper underneath here, but that's the difference. And the difference between a football head jig and a regular jig is in terms of how you work it. Other type of jigs, like a casting jig or a pitching and flipping jig or a finesse jig, it's designed to be hopped off the bottom like that. You pop it off the bottom where it comes 4 inches to a couple feet off the bottom. A football head jig is designed not to be hopped. It's designed to be dragged across the bottom and it never leaves contact with the bottom. So that is the main difference, is the presentation of dragging versus hopping. Now, this dragging versus hopping presentation is key in a football jig scenario. So let me sort of lay out the scenarios where you want to use a football jig over a conventional jig, like a pitching and flipping jig. Most of the time, when you're using some type of a pitching and flipping jig, you're fishing around some type of targets in the water, like a dock, lay down tree in the water. Maybe you're flipping it into some lily pads or some reeds, or maybe there's some stumps you're flipping it around. So you're fishing it in and around cover, and a lot of times you're penetrating cover. You're penetrating the interior part of a lay down tree, or penetrating a flooded bush or something like that, or penetrating back up underneath the boat dock. With a football head jig, you're not penetrating anything with this. You're dragging more in open water. So the football head jig is designed, the primary use for it is designed to cover a lot of water a little bit deeper on flatter, smoother bottoms. So therefore, a football jig is primarily used a lot of times around secondary points, main lake points, and flatter banks that have flatter slopes on it. This is just typical for this type of technique, and it works most of the year, guys. A football head jig is one of those few baits. There's about a dozen baits out there that will catch bass 12 months out of the year. A football head jig is one of them. It doesn't really have a season. You can catch them in the winter, spring, summer, and fall on it. I've literally caught them in every month of the year on it, because bass live on those type of places all year long, those main lake and secondary points. So here's what I like to look for on my football head jig. First of all, we make 2 different sizes in my Blaukat Throwback football. We make a 1/2 ounce and a 3/4. I throw the 3/4 most of the time, If I'm fishing water that's less than 10 feet deep, I may throw the 1/2 ounce. Or say, for example, if it's colder out and there's no wind, maybe the 1/2 ounce. But a lot of times I like the 3/4 because I'm not concerned about the fall rate. I'm concerned about the bait staying on the bottom, and the 3/4 gets to the bottom and stays on the bottom a little bit easier, but that's the 2 different sizes for it. So what I like to look for, number one, is your water clarity window. I like to have at least 2 foot of visibility for good football head jig fishing. Now I've caught them in dirtier, I've caught them in like a foot of water on it before, but the ideal visibility range for me is about 2 to 4 foot of clarity, which a lot of lakes have that type of clarity. That's a perfect scenario. And I fish primarily 95% of the time, I just run points. I run as many points as I can. I try to stay on the flatter, smoother points. Haven't done that good like on the steeper rocky points, but I've caught them on creek points and cove points, on main lake points. And it's just a matter of getting out there, getting your boat like in 15 to 25, maybe 30 foot of water, and fan casting all over that point. Now, normally what I do, let's say for example, I'm fishing a lake we're fishing, the early summer or whatever like that, or any time of the year. I'll get out there on those points. I usually put my boat, like I said, in 20 to 30 foot of water, and I'm just going to fan cast everywhere, because I don't really know the depth of the fish are going to be. Sometimes say for example, in the springtime, they're going to be shallow, or they're going to be 15 feet or less. But in the summertime or the fall time of the year, based upon the thermocline depth, they could be anywhere between, 20 to 50 foot on the bottom. So based upon the time of the year, that sort of gives me an indication of where to fish. And of course, the clearer the water, the deeper I'll probably be fishing. But traditionally, I like to get my boat in like 20 to 30 foot of water. I'll make a cast up in 5 feet. I'll drag it out all the way to the boat. I'll cast across the point in 10 to 15 foot. I'll drag it back to the boat. And I might even cast behind the boat out into 30 or 40 foot of water and drag it back to the boat. Once I start getting a few bites, that sort of gives me an indication of the depth I need to focus on. So let's say, for example, I fish 20 points and I don't get a bite on 15 of those points, but on 5 of those points, most of the bites that I get come in 10 to 15 foot of water. At that point, I'm gonna start concentrating on 10 to 15 foot of water, or 5 foot or 30 foot, depending upon where I'm getting my bites out. It gives me a little bit more efficient. Okay, the next thing is equipment. It's pretty critical with it. Now, personally, I use a flipping stick with a football head jig, especially the 3/4 ounce. Megabass Alkalies here, I usually use 15 pound test Seagarn Vizex fluorocarbon line. I find 15 is about the right pound test. And here's how I fish it, which is important too. I'll cast it out there, let it hit the bottom. I keep my rod tip parallel to the water, like at 9 o'clock position. My rod tip's parallel. And what I do is I pull it like that. And then once I pull it, even with my body, I take up the slack real quick like that and get the rod tip back pointed at the bait. I pull it again like that, drag it just about this slow. Once in a while, I'll pop the rod tip a little bit like that, but I'm dragging it and then real fast like that. And you want to reel fast enough, when you take up the slack, you want to reel fast enough to where the bait does not stop. So in other words, if you just pulled it like this and then just reel like that and then pulled it, your bait's it's gonna be going like this, and then it's gonna stop, and then it's gonna start again. So what I wanna do is I'll reel it like that, and then when I start reeling fast, when I'm taking up the slack, I'm still moving forward a little bit. And a lot of times that's when I'll do that little twitch with the rod tip, just like that. And a lot of times that little snap with the rod tip, that'll get the fish to trigger the bite on there. Because most of the time on these football head jigs, if you make a long cast and this thing's bouncing across the bottom, you've got fish that are swimming down there looking at this thing and they're following it. A lot of times they'll follow it for 10 or 15 feet on the bottom. Sometimes if you snap it like that, it'll trigger them into bite it. But it's an easy thing to fish, guys. If you never caught one on a football head jig, it's one of the easiest baits to fish. There's not much to it. You're just dragging it along the bottom. And I'm not saying that you have to do the, take up the slack. That's just the way that I like to do it. You can probably catch some if you let it sit there still, but that's just the way that I fish it. But basically you're getting out on a point and you're just reeling slow with a football head jig. Super easy bait to fish. The bite on it usually you'll just be pulling it like that, and all of a sudden it'll just get mushy, or sometimes you'll feel your line tick like that. It's a fun bait to fish. So anyway, guys, give it a try. Like I said, I'll have that jig linked to my tackle warehouse link in this video description there. My favorite, any type of green or brown, you can't go wrong with it. Straight brown, brown and orange, brown and purple, green, whatever, some type of a natural color. And the trailer, real quick on it, guys. This is a brush hog, a Zoom brush hog. You can use about any trailer that you want to use, but I prefer something that's got some curly tails on it. So I usually use a brush hog or like a Zoom Z-Craw, something like that. Or you might use a Rage Craw or a Speed Craw or something, just something that's gives some actions to the tail there. So anyway, I hope you guys catch some on it. We'll talk later.